Eco Red.
Radical Radio Collective.
Good afternoon, listeners. You're tuned into 4ZZZ 102.1 FM. This is Australia's longest running peace and environment radio show, probably.
This is Eco Radio.
What did I say?
Oh, I thought you just went straight from this is Australia's longest. Yeah, I didn't hear the show title unless I wasn't paying attention. Sorry.
We are taking over your middle of the day, middle of the week, start of the month airwaves. My name is Dave. My pronouns are he, him.
My name is Zack, and my pronouns are he, they.
My name's Andy, and my pronouns are he, him.
And I'm going to start off by acknowledging and paying my respects to the custodians on the country in which we broadcast. We're located in the city of Mungajin, Mianjin, on Turrbal Yagara and Yugambal land. I also want to acknowledge and pay my respects to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who are listening in today. Our radio waves reach Cubby Cubby and Yinabara country in the north, Waka Waka country in the west. In the east, we pay our respects to the Quandamooka people, and down south we reach the Kaimari, Nagaragwal, Munjali, Wanjerabara and Yugambeh and Bunjalung countries. Thank you to No Idea for all the great ideas. I always love to hear about smart fish.
Well, at least them being able to recognise themselves. That's pretty cool, actually.
That's pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I would have those capabilities.
If you were a fish? Or just
even if
general?
Just full stop. I couldn't do it in such a short amount of time. I couldn't do it in 30 minutes.
No, probably not.
Maybe like 30 months or so. But.
Right. Well, today on the show, we're not talking about fish. We're hanging out with Jon Watson. Jon is attempting to live within our share of the planetary boundaries here in suburban Brisbane. Jon, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Dave.
And later in the show, we will bring you an interview with Joseph Ka'au, a customary chief of the Kaimari tribe and traditional landowner from Baimuru in the Purari Delta. Joseph is leading a campaign to protect his people's land from the destruction of an LNG project there in Papua New Guinea. But before we kick off the show, I want to address the rampant American imperialism happening and read what our Prime Minister had to say after America and Israel bombed Iran, and Iran in turn bombed US assets and allies across the region, targeting Israel, Bahrain, Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates and Jordan. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese was asked by a journalist at a press conference, was this attack illegal? Was this attack legal, actually? Are you concerned that this might erode further the rules-based order? Prime Minister Anthony Albanese replied, those judgments and statements for the United States and for those involved directly in the attack, apparently not for Australian politicians to make a judgment about whether that's legal or illegal. We just sit by idly and see what happens.
Which is very ironic given the support for the rules-based order Mr. Albanese gave sometime last year or the start of this year, I can't remember which, but he's actively spoken about how important it is to uphold these international norms and systems, and then obviously he doesn't have anything to say when the US goes and directly does what they've done. Yeah,
extrajudicial murder. This first it was in Venezuela, then it was in Mexico, now it's in Iran. So yeah, we here on Eco Radio are pro-peace. We want a free Iran, a free Sudan, a free Palestine, a free West Papua, and a free Earth. And I don't know if you can get that from bombing. So to kick everything off, I want to play a Iranian protest song. This is called Bar-Rai. This version is from Roddy Nikbor, an Iranian-American artist, but was originally made by Shervin Hajipur. So this is Bar-Rai. You're listening to 4ZZZ Eco Radio.
You're listening to Eco Radio, the radio of the future.
You are listening to Eco Radio, the radio of the future. Thank you, small child, for giving us a bit of leeway in the end of that song. And that was Baraye by Roddy Nikapor. It's important that I say that I'm not an expert on Iran, so like everyone, I'm just appalled to see that the norms of our international manners, I guess, civilization, have eroded so far in such a short time. But not talking about that, we are talking to Jon Watson. Jon is a, what would you say, Jon? A life influencer?
Sure, I guess so. Trying to do the opposite of typical influencing, which is about promoting consumption, and go the other way. Promote, let's sort of call it the laziness, frugal hedonism.
Yeah,
enjoying
right.
life with less of the stuff.
Yeah, so you run a blog called Living More with Less, and you've documented your journey on there. Can you tell us a bit about your journey? How did it begin?
Sure. So I think my wife and I have always wanted to save the world in some way or another. I feel like all children either want to save the world or conquer it. Definitely more on the latter lately, and conquering it is all about accumulating stuff and showing your status. We went to Asia in 2006 to volunteer, which didn't work out very well because the volunteering was more for the benefit of the volunteers than for the community. So instead we bought some crappy bikes there and we cycled in Southeast Asia. And that really gave us the opportunity to meet and spend time with and see people living with very little and getting a lot out of life. And I think that we took kind of two things from that. One is that we don't need a lot of stuff to be happy, and we'd already sort of studied a little bit of philosophy around that, and that was just really consolidating that idea for us. And the other was that if we're going to do good in the world, then we're much better off working in Australia and giving to an effective charity rather than trying to actually apply our labour in the countries that we were supporting. So we kind of took both of those tenets on board back in 2006 and have lived most of our life along those lines. We did find a few years ago, though, that we were really getting sidetracked trying to fit in, trying to be worried about the state of the future. We turned to doomsday prepping, which is a really high consumption, rather right-wing activity where you're afraid of other people. And that really kind of undermined all those values and put us in a place where we had a lot of internal conflict, which we didn't really acknowledge. And that showed up in also with the secrecy and kind of shame around those things. It's a pretty extreme perspective, and trying to balance it with our environmental ideals and our ideals of fairness. It ended in a place with a lot of conflict, internal and external. And we realised that we'd really just fallen into the same traps of consumption and performative behaviours that make us good consumers and good citizens, and a part of the problem rather than a part of the solution. Yeah,
that's interesting. So, in your opinion, doomsday prepping is a part of that consumption model to, I guess, stockpile and make sure that you've got everything you would ever need it's at your hands. It's almost very individualism.
It is, yeah.
Individualistic.
Right. It kind of takes capitalism to the extreme. Like if you realise that you've won at your basic survival, now you're looking at future survival, but it's all about the individual. And it's also all driven by fear, fear of other people. And it was actually during that phase of let's call it crisis. There was a bunch of those environmental things happening where we were exposed to flood and fire, including on our property. It ended up burning down. The irony of it, and the relationship challenges. And a friend of mine who did have some insight into the prepping mindset actually gave me a book, Rebecca Solnit, A Paradise Built in Hell, which documents how people actually respond in the case of disaster and like a small-scale societal breakdown over the 20th and 21st century. And that was really quite the opposite of the picture that we imagined. People didn't become these monsters. In fact, for a lot of people involved in that process, this is the highlight of their lives, where they could had an excuse not to go to work. They could do things that really mattered, and they tended just to always pull together. And the only people in those circumstances who were problematic were preppers and government, both concerned about their material possessions, well-being, and maintaining control and order.
Yeah, I think that's a pervasive myth, maybe, that when disasters happen, people or groups, maybe the community goes into panic. But from what I've seen in disasters I've been a part of, is exactly the opposite. We come together, and mutual aid becomes a bigger part of our well-being.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And when you look at historical breakdowns or kind of miniature collapse scenarios, like it's happened in Latin America with the collapse of the Soviet Union and so on, the same thing has happened. There's definitely been, in some instances, increase in violence. Often, though, it's driven because of larger organisations that are doing that, whereas the majority of people are just wanting to help out their neighbours. And even when you look at the most extreme cases with famines through the 20th century, which were, again, government-induced, and millions of people died of starvation, that even then there was very little interpersonal violence. People would give up their last piece of bread for the well-being of others.
Yeah.
So that was a great flip back to looking at community and returning to our values. And I'll acknowledge that we're not the only people who are living within the planetary boundaries. In fact, there's the 1.6 billion people in sub-Saharan Africa. Between them, only consume about a third of their reasonable share of the Earth's resources. Yeah,
this is interesting. You in your blog, you talk about the numbers of Planet One life, and I assume that on average in Australia, we are part of the wealthiest 10%.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. You only need to be earning about 45,000 US, about 60,000 Australian dollars before tax, to be in the wealthiest 10% in the world.
Yeah, but it's not just that we have an income and we make $60,000, but we also have free healthcare for the most part, roads, right, libraries, things like this.
Yeah,
right?
There's a lot of social capital in place. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, what are your practicalities about going from the wealthiest 10% to living within that what would you call it? One life?
Yeah, one planet living is kind of how we've broken it down. So that's the idea that if we took all of the resources of the Earth and divided it by the population just evenly, forget about the past, even though we're obviously responsible for most of the harm. Let's just clear the slate because it's in our favour. How much would we each be able to consume? So on a day-to-day basis, for us, that means that we have committed not to fly, and it's not that flying is particularly bad in itself, it just enables really long distance travel. A full plane is lower impact than a one person in a car, but you can only take the car so far. So along those lines, we've also then cut down our car use dramatically, and that comes with a whole bunch of co-benefits when we're mostly cycling instead. So we're spending more time outside, it's the free exercise, it's connecting with nature and community and sunlight, and as it turns out, that way of living, that much more engaged and slower way of living is very good for us across all domains, largely because we evolved in that sort of setting. Doing this moderate endurance exercise outdoors and close to other people. So, of course, that's how all our health systems and our chemical reward systems tell us that we're doing the right thing. And in terms of diet, I acknowledge that it's probably quite natural to have an omnivorous diet, but given the current population, it's not compatible with one planet living. So we cut down our meat consumption almost to zero and animal product consumption almost to zero for a couple of years. And then last year we also started dumpster diving. So that was the opportunity to, we're still not eating very much meat, but a little bit more rather than buying meat alternatives, but also sharing in our neighbourhood. And people won't take stuff out of the bin themselves, but if they see the condition that it's in and they're prepared to take those risks on, then they're more than happy to accept things which we take out. So in that regard, that's really like a negative impact that's happening. It's reducing consumption of meat and products that there is obviously an increased risk for everything that you take out of the bin, but people can make their own judgment and use their senses the same as we did for thousands of years before we had date stamps and refrigerated supply chains. We also live in a really small, not really small by Australian standards house, a 90 square metre house that was built in the 50s. We were tempted to do a major renovation that would have doubled our floor area a few years ago, and that was kind of one of the points where we realised, hey, this is just for status. We're doing this because this is the model. Every child should have their own room, and we should have an entertaining space and all this other stuff. And it was going to cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And we just worked out, hey, if we don't do that, we can retire 10 years earlier. And all we had to do really was put up a wall in our living room, we don't have a TV, which is part of the story as well, I guess, and soundproof the door. And then the kids have got their own space. If they want to fight, they can go in there, close the door, and
cage match style.
Yeah, that's right. We don't need to really even hear about it.
So I think with building extra onto your house, there's that obligation that flows on about having to fill it with stuff.
That's right.
As well.
The bigger the house is, the more stuff you put in it. And we've only bought secondhand stuff generally, or a lot of it is curbside pickup. We've upgraded our couch twice or three times just by returning the one which is less attractive or a little bit worn out to the curb, and it soon disappears. Someone wants it anyway, and getting a new, nicer one for our living room. So we've basically spent nothing on furniture, clothing, toys. So much already in the waste stream. So over 20 years, I think we've probably spent 1 or 2% of typical spending on household goods, which have a relatively high turnover. And our low-cost living has meant that now at 41, my wife and I are retired, effectively.
Wow.
Because you put that money that you're not spending into passive investments. We didn't do it very well in particular, but we recognise that we won at capitalism. By being born in Australia, we're not super wealthy. We've got a net worth of about $2 million. But the net returns on that means that we live on about half of that, the return from that, and we give the other half away to effective charities, which we have come to know more closely. The Life You Can Save is one that we try to funnel the giving through, because there's a difference between a charity that, say in Australia, a guide dog costs about $50,000 to train, one guide dog that helps one blind person. If we give that money to an effective charity working in sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia, then an eye surgery to cure blindness costs about $83.
Yeah, right.
So there's you can do hundreds of times more good than you by giving effectively. So we've really kind of tried to balance out, optimize our life in a way that that's good for us, good for the planet, and helps to address some of the inequality that we don't really have another mechanism to do. And coming back to your comments about what can we do about the situation in Iran before.
Oh, yep.
While the music was playing. So obviously, if we reduce our demand for resources, then we reduce the motivation for conflict. And I think that that's something that we need to highlight, that we can just blame the perpetrators. We can just blame corporations or government or whatever else who do obviously have a responsibility. They can act differently, but they have no motivation to, because we're still in a market economy. We create demand for a product. They have an incentive to produce that product. All of the conflicts that you referred to really revolve around oil or other resources, but oil is really the strict one. So if we can drive less and transition to lower resource lifestyle, then every reason for conflict kind of evaporates pretty quickly. There is across the globe an absolute abundance because of the way that efficiency has developed under the market economy and capitalism. Everyone can live a decent lifestyle if we can help address some of that inequality and look to a life that has meaning. Look, if we start to value the things that serve us well, rather than just follow the kind of default model which is put in front of us. And no one's to blame for that, of course. We're just every story that's told is generally about the wealthy hero who has all the things going for him, and then that automatically becomes our aspirations. I recognise Batman as one of my childhood models, but he's a loner. When you actually break it down to his life, it's probably pretty quite miserable. But I still found myself several times on this. I just want that fast car, and I want the man cave, and and all the technology, and to be rich, of course. So you have all the power and influence.
So you had to, I guess, talk yourself out of those status symbols.
Yeah. I think that it took a crisis. I guess it took the experience in Asia at first to see, hang on, this is not, we don't need all that stuff, but still being surrounded by it again, and just in daily engagement and everything that you see everywhere, not just advertising, that's really tuned to make us want stuff, but every story, as I say, every TV show, every movie is showing a life to aspire to. And one of the biggest exports from the West to the rest of the world has been media, film and TV, and that has also created this attraction to a lifestyle that ultimately is far worse in many ways than indigenous or traditional lifestyles, where people remain close to their families and value the chill out time, and respect the holidays and festivities, and so it's very easy to get waylaid. And you're right, we had to come to the realization of basically via the symptoms that we had fallen too far back into that path.
Yeah. Have you heard the story that the individual carbon footprint was the brainchild of a BP PR team? That tells people that climate change isn't a mining company's fault. It's the fault of people drinking from plastic bottles, or not taking public transport enough. Have you heard of this?
I have heard that, and unfortunately it serves as a bit of a deflection, and people cite that over and over again as reasons why they shouldn't be doing something more on an individual level. But it's not a case of either or. If we can change the demand on the market, then it changes their incentives. We can also push for stronger regulation and better taxation policies, and addressing all of the externalities. The reason often that buying a new thing is cheaper than fixing an old thing is because the new thing doesn't account for all of the damages that go into its manufacture and its disposal. So I think that there is a limited truth to the story about BP and the carbon footprint. But even before then and after then, a lot of independent research has looked at what is an individual's responsibility, like how can we break it down, and using different models besides carbon footprint. And I think, as I said before, we can just get caught up in the trying to blame one person or another. But in all regards, if we can take more accountability for our own stuff, then we're empowered by doing that. Rather than for as long as we think it's someone else's problem, it's disempowering, and it's easy to lose hope that anything's ever going to happen. I think that the best thing we can do is accept that there isn't really a lot of hope in other people doing stuff or other corporations doing stuff, and we can't rely on just hope. It's kind of it's wishing something to happen, but we can take stuff into our own hands and take control of that situation by how we spend our money, how productive we kind of choose to be. You're talking about before, just by earning $60,000, we're not automatically doing harm, but the reality is we spend that money. We spend it on tax, which we don't control exactly how that goes. We can try and vote for that to be favourable to us, but everything else that we spend it on pretty much does harm. So we can choose the things that do the least harm and the most good, and cut down our own individual impacts. And we can support organisations, either lobby organisations or through voting or through NGOs. We can support organisations that align with the things which we do see as important, and that can be a very effective way of spending that money, which actively reduces harm.
So have you had a lot of pushback on your lifestyle then, from people saying this isn't maybe practical, or this isn't what other people are able to do?
I think that there is definitely a risk of preaching or proselytising, and then people will just get defensive. I think we've had actually very little pushback this time around. In 2008 to 2010 or thereabouts, my wife and I were very ascetic. We were living without hot water, without a car, without a fridge, and we were preaching at every opportunity. There was an urgency to make change, and we alienated people. People can't just go from where they are now to a one planet lifestyle with the snap of the fingers. There's a lot of stuff we've got to deal with kind of internally before we can get there. And I think that even just accepting that the dreams that we have aren't our own dreams is a really kind of slow, it's a process that takes several steps to kind of get there. Why do I want the things that I want? And so I think this time around we've been much wiser, and I guess 20 years, whatever does that, to accepting people where they're at. People haven't chosen the lifestyle that they have necessarily all that deliberately. People don't want to do harm. They don't want to destroy the planet. They're the only one that we've got. But often they feel as though this is the only way that's going to serve them and sort of do good things in their life. So instead, we recognise that change, and there's been a lot of progressive change across the course of history, social movements. Very few of them are successful. Like something like 1 in 30 social uprising or social movements is successful, but 1 in 30 means that over the course of the last 100 generations or so, the world is far more ethical, moral, kinder, less exploitative, whatever, than it was, at the time of the rise of civilization, and the Dark Ages and so on. And so we can look to how do we live now? What model can we create that will lead to change over the course of a generation? And it's difficult to do that kind of with patience, because we can see so many natural systems and political systems and economic and whatever kind of falling apart around us. We kind of want to drive urgent change, but it's not realistically going to happen. It's just going to cause a lot of sort of frustration and anger. So much better just to do what we can do, share the message, and that's why we have the blog here. Other people I think don't recognise how much more they could do because they're not seeing it out there. The models that we have generally have higher consumption. And we were inspired to dumpster dive for the first time after kind of wanting to do it for a few years by seeing someone else doing it, by seeing Robin Greenfield, the American activist, doing it. And on his blog he says that if anyone gets prosecuted worldwide, he has a fund there to cover their legal costs. Yeah, right. And I don't think it's actually happened in Australia. It's illegal to trespass if you go into an enclosed area, or the signage to that effect. But anything that is reasonably abandoned is fair game. So product that's gone into bins is fair game. Okay. Obviously, if anyone listening to this intends to go out dumpster diving, I just caution that it's, for some people, this might be their only, if it's food, might be their only sustenance, or their only source of income if there's something that they're reselling, and we don't want to mess it up for them. Yep. So we my wife and I certainly could afford to shop completely normally. We've chosen to reduce waste instead, and we try and do that as absolutely respectfully as possible, which involves, if we're in the bin, for instance, we might sort what's in the bin so that the stuff that is really not fit for consumption is kind of out of the way. Mm-hmm. If someone comes after us, they'll have a better experience than we did. And we're trying to leave the whole area tidier than it was, because we don't want to create problems for other people who are diving. We don't want to create problems with the staff. Yep. What happened in the US when dumpster diving became a big thing, it's kind of over the past 30 years, is more and more bins get locked up. Yes. And then no one has access to that, and more is wasted. So there's a lot to kind of consider. That's so not just a case of going. You give the bin a bit of an organising so that the bin people who operate the bins, they're just going to flip it into a truck. But if someone comes dumpster diving after us, we want them to see that there's in-date or just gone past date bread here, produce here. If there's meat there, put it into the middle, so that if we haven't taken it, so that it's going to stay cooler for a little bit longer. And if there's a great mess, sometimes there's loose flour or sugar or potting mix or something in there, try and keep it out of the way from all being mixed up. Because we won't dive in an area where we know there's a homeless population. So we know that there's bins around the valley here and the city. Won't even take a look. We're in suburban areas where we've encountered one other diver in the last 4 months, and we know that she appeared to have been in reasonably dire circumstances. So we'll take a reasonable portion and leave whatever it is that leave something for her to collect if she comes after us. No guarantee of that, of course.
Yeah. This is fascinating, John. Thank you so much for joining us. Is there one thing that you want to leave our listeners with about your lifestyle?
Probably the least popular one, and and I'll just share it when it comes back to the one change that has the most universal impact across all domains, because we just talked about carbon, but obviously there's a whole bunch of other planetary boundaries that apply as well, and that is the diet change. Not to dumpster diving. I'm not actually advocating dumpster diving. I think that if you want to go the next level, it's there, but substituting beef and dairy for beans and soy or oat products instead, that reduces potentially reduces individual carbon impacts by about a third, which is a huge step, more than anything else we can do. But it also reduces land pressure demand, pesticide, insecticide, biodiversity threats, water consumption, across the whole gamut. So beef for beans is kind of the little catchphrase that we'll throw out there. And I also acknowledge that it's not easy to do. There's so much pressure in Australia to consume meat. It's mainly to consume meat. It's Australian to consume meat. There's so many kind of patriotic and
the lamb ads, a yearly
crazy. Yeah,
people applaud them.
Yeah, incredible. But there's plenty of famous people who are vegan, including sports people and bodybuilders and movie stars and whatever else. To tie an identity into a diet, I feel is part of our overall falling apart. Putting everyone's identity on the line and creating division where there really doesn't need to be any. And even just a reduction. It's there doesn't need to be such a big deal as we make of it. Although there's of course money on the line, so it's always going to be.
All right. Well, thank you, John. Where can people find you?
We are across most of the social media platforms, which I know is ironic because we want people to get off of them. But we also just have a website, livingmorewithless.org, which is independent of any of the social media platforms and is ad-free and will remain so. And we link through to other people's stories from there as well, because we know, like I said, we know we're not the only ones living this way, and we really just want to pull the stories together to help inspire people and set them on the path if that's what they're interested in.
Yeah, and like you said at the start of the show, you can't do this stuff without community.
No, I think community is that's the number one thing in terms of resilience and resourcefulness. Getting it all together.
Let's go to a chat I had the other day. I recorded this chat with Joseph Carr about his campaign to protect his people and their way of life in Papua New Guinea from a liquefied natural gas project that wants to dump waste in their water stream. This is that talk. We'll be back after this. You're listening to Eco Radio.
Yeah, my name is Joseph Kenai Tahau. I come from the Gulf province of Papua New Guinea, in a place called Baimuru. I am the tribal chief of my tribe, Kaimari tribe, and I am also the chairman of the association registered by the tribe with the government, Kaimari Association. So I represent about maybe 3,000-4,000 people.
Yeah, okay.
In Baimuru, yeah.
You're also the board member for the Papua New Guinea Integral Human Development Trust.
Yes.
Yeah.
In the trust, I'm a board member. That's an NGO working in PNG.
Yeah. Can you tell us what the trust does?
Trust, I would use the word used to for what we call literacy and awareness work on issues. Literacy meaning trying to get young people, children to be trained in literacy, basic literacy, read and write, doing awareness on issues. Yeah, issues affecting people throughout the country.
Okay.
Basically, we used to use literacy to train people about development issues at a young age.
Yeah. Can you tell us about what is happening with the Papua LNG project in your area?
Yeah, okay. Firstly, the Papua LNG project is a gas project where big international companies are going to be taking out gas from my area, the Gulf province. So this company is one of them is Total. It's a French gas and oil company, big French and oil company.
Mm-hmm.
And our partners are Santos. I think Santos is based in Australian company.
Yep.
Based in Brisbane, I think. Yeah, and the third partner is ExxonMobil, American company. So these three companies are combined to try and develop this gas project in the Gulf province of Papua New Guinea.
And you're worried that the project there will produce waste that will affect your area there?
Yes, my area, we're talking about 800,000 hectares of land. Most of this land is delta, islands and rivers.
Mm.
So like the government, local government I come from is known as Baimuru local level government. So about 60 to 70% of this land is delta, and it's below. It's located below where the project is located. So the project is located upstream from where I come from. So when it's developed, we hear that they're going to be. A permit has been issued already by the government to the company to discharge waste into the environment. That's the wording on the permit.
They would just be allowed to discharge it straight into the environment.
Yes, that's permit. They've been allowed to discharge waste into the environment. They don't define what the waste is. They don't define what the environment is.
Well, could you tell us about the environment in the Purari Delta?
Purari.
Sorry.
Yeah. So, like I said, it's mostly delta area, islands and rivers. And the people that live in that area, including my tribe, there's about 600 or 700 tribes where I come from. They live along the banks, the waters of the Purari, the Delta, Purari Delta. About 20,000 people, men, women, children, and they are like 90% dependent on the Purari for their survival.
Mm.
Like their fish comes from the river, the crabs, the prawns come from the river. The sago, the staple food that they eat. Sago is a palm tree that they derive the product sago from. It's also grows on the banks of the river. And the people use the river waters to make the sago. So if the company is going to dump waste that is toxic into the Purari Delta, it's going to affect 100% of these people.
Okay. So what would you like to see happen in your area?
Like the waste, I have read one initial environmental impact assessment statement from the company, Total. And in it, they mentioned that one of the waste products might be hydrogen sulfide.
Oh.
Yes. It's a byproduct of the gas production. So that's one of the waste that they might dump into the environment. The others, waste that they mentioned is wastewater. We had recently that they might develop also some oil from this gas project. And so the discharge from this, the waste from this gas oil production is it's going to be oily water. All these things might be dumped into the Purari River. Now that's been mentioned. Hydrogen sulfide, wastewater, one side of it. The other side is where are they going to dump it? They don't tell us where on the environment they will dump it or dispose. It might be on the land, which is possibly a landfill, or into the river, straight into the river. And it's going to affect all these people in the Delta. So we need the company to tell us if what I'm saying is indeed what it is.
Yeah.
We haven't actually gone public yet.
So how has the companies been able to get approval for this future project?
Well, that's what we need to be told. I mean, they've got the approval already. The government has granted them the approval to dump waste into the environment.
Without,
so the only way we can, it's
without consulting you and your people.
No, they haven't. We think that, and we stand to be corrected, but they should have carried out, awareness in every community in the Delta. and told them that we're going to do this. We're going to discharge of waste. And they should have even told us that what the waste is and where they will discharge it. They haven't done that prior to the permit being issued. We think that it's a requirement. If not legal, then it's a social obligation for a company to tell us that. But they haven't. And I went there after the permit was issued, and since then, up to now, I came back 2 weeks ago from the village. They haven't done that. So we think that this is not correct. This is wrong. The government should not have given them the permit if they had not talked to the people who are going to be most affected.
So how are you able to stop them? Are you putting in lawsuits?
That's the only option probably we have right now if we're going to stop this permit, is to go to court. We've sought some legal advice, and we've been told the only way to deal with it, to probably have it reversed or cancelled, is to go to court and get the courts to give the order for the permit to be nullified. So we are working with the local legal NGOs. It's called CELCO. Working with them to try and get this case presented in court so it can be heard.
And how can we help you do that?
Well, we tried to get lawyers to help us we went to talk to lawyers, and it's like nearly next to impossible to get a lawyer on our terms to represent us. And villagers, we can't afford to right now pay for initial fees to get the lawyers to represent us in court. And even then, we need to find lawyers who have a license to practice. And all the lawyers, we spoke to about 5 lawyers so far, and none of them have a license to practice. So those ones who said they might help us. So the major cost now is to pay for the lawyers. We've had some suggestions that people might be able to do it like pro bono for us, but again, we haven't found any lawyer in PNG who can do that right away. So probably our partners, maybe in Australia or elsewhere, can help us to do this. And again, it needs finances to do that, capacity.
There is an online campaign to help out with that. We will post that to our listeners. Is there anything you would like our listeners to know about the campaign?
For me, it's what this waste will do to my people. Not only the current generation, because the permit is for 25 years. So the company is going to operate for 25 years. I might not be around to see the end of this project, but my children will definitely be around. My grandchildren will be definitely around. And these are the people who will be mostly affected by this dumping of this waste. That I don't want to see upon. I don't want to see it upon my children and my grandchildren. And if I can do something about it now, I will do it. If there's whatever is there, capacity is there or not, we'll try and make something happen out of this and see that companies stop this permit is withdrawn. I don't know if there's such a thing like disposing your waste in a safe place, but all the projects in PNG, they just dump them into the environment, all the waste. So I think that's where they are getting their access to this permit. The government has no doesn't care to the environment, but to the people as well.
Yeah, it's pretty horrifying.
So and these are not Papua New Guinea companies. The major operator is a French company, Total.
Yeah, and Santos as well.
Yeah, Santos, and they don't have very good records with looking after the environment and the people that dwell in the environment.
Thank you very much for joining us, Joseph.
Yeah, listen, I really appreciate this discussion, this talk, and I'm feeling a bit lighthearted now because some people might listen to what's happening in my place of the world.
Yeah, I think it's important to get it out there.
Yes, and thank you very much for being part of that.
Oh, thank you. That was Joseph Ka'au, customary chief of the Kaimari tribe, and he is fighting for his place of the world and his people's place of the world to not be polluted by an LNG project. if you like what we do here on 4ZZZ, we are a subscriber-based enterprise radio station. We've been doing a subscription before Patreon was even thought of, a glimmer in whoever's eye. And you can be a part of that family. You can be a part of our 4ZZZ family.
Yeah, so subscriptions start at a minimum of $25 for a pet or under 18-year-old, which are pretty similar things in my opinion. Then you can be, if you're slightly more, I suppose, giving, generous, kind, you can get a full subscription for $80, or there is a passionate subscription for $140. With that one, you get a tote bag, a t-shirt, and some stickers. Or if you're even more passionate than just regular passionate, you can become a super sub. You get your name up on the wall downstairs, and there's a whole bunch of other perks that you can get with that.
Yeah.
If you do subscribe to 4ZZZ, you will be I suppose you'll earn some discounts at various 4ZZZ associated outlets throughout Brisbane.
Yeah, you'll also get your name on our text line, like Marky did. Marky texted in as we were talking to Jon Watson, who was still in the studio. Hello, John.
Hi.
He said, great chat, guys. He's been living a very minimalistic life and dumpster diving a couple of times before. And I thought that we had a great conversation. Also, if you aren't a subscriber, your name will not come up on our text line, just like a non-sub that said, Whale House are so sexy. Thank you, non-sub, but unfortunately I can't take that on board because you are not a subscriber.
If you do subscribe this month, though, you get a $200 gift card from Glitter Records that you can use to purchase any of their records, cassettes, CDs, books, or any of their other merch at the California Lane shop front. So if you're into music, now's an excellent time to subscribe because you might have a chance of winning that one.
Absolutely. Let's close off the show now with a little thing I like to call the Bushcare Roundup. It goes a little something like this.
It's a Bushcare Roundup. They've been pulling out weeds and then they put in trees. It's the Bushcare Roundup.
All right, kicking off Friday the 6th at 6:30. You can go to the Cane Toad Bust at Whites Hill Reserve. That's kicking off at the playground there at Camp Hill. At 8 o'clock, you can go to Intro to Screen Printing Workshop at the Brisbane Tool Library. Get in contact with them to do that.
On Saturday the 7th at 8 a.m. there is a March community planting. That one is at Clarina Street Park in Chapel Hill. Then from 1:30 till 3 p.m. there is the Brisbane Community Seed Swap. That one is hosted by the New Economy Network Australia. Nina, I believe it is. Mm-hmm. And that one is at Northgate Hall, Northgate. And then from 7:15 till 9:15 p.m. there is a Gold Coast Toad Track Community Toad Bust at Eddie Kornhauser Recreational Reserve in Eleonora.
And on Sunday the 8th, if you ever wanted to try your hand at Bushcare, come along and try Bushcare at Lorikeet Street Reserve, Bundamba, between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock. 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock, Ballast Street Bushcare and beers. That sounds pretty good. Ballast Street Park, Holland Park West. 15:30 to 17:30, so 3:30 to 5:30. Yeronga Bushcare, March Working Bee, Anita Street Park, Yeronga.
And that's it.
Oh no, there's one more actually, Dave.
No, that's one for next week.
Okay.
Or a couple of weeks from now. Thank you so much for listening in today. John, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
And my name is Dave. I've been here at Eco Radio. We've got Zack and we've got Andy. And we want to say a goodbye to our wonderful show neighbour Jordan, who is moving up in the ranks. They're going to drive time. They've been promoted. They're getting the big bucks now. And we're going to miss you as our lovely show neighbour. To go out though, we've got a song by Small Frog. It's called Where There's Smoke. You've been listening to 4ZZZ. This has been Eco Radio. Thank you so much for listening, dear listeners.
For your dose of news, current affairs and analysis, tune in to 4ZZZ 102.1 FM, 12 to 1 p.m. daily. Only Human, Eco Radio, Paradigm Shift, Megahertz and Brisbane Line, Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturday. 4ZZZ 102.1 FM, people-powered radio.